Hey guys, it's Jared Cook. I'm here in Waco, Texas at the Perry Company, and what we're doing today is we're going to install the DebrisBoot for the SVL. And what this does essentially is it helps reduce the amount of dust, dirt, debris, limbs, sticks, whatever you can throw down in this rear pit. It's going to help you with your maintenance and your safety. Today is all about doing the install video. We do have a promotional video if you want to learn more about the product as a whole. So go check out our YouTube channel and view that. Let's get into it. All right guys, so we're going to install this rear hinge bracket. We're going to talk more about that. Little integral piece to the design, really pretty neat piece. But the first thing we're going to do in order to install that is we're going to locate, if you run your finger along this radius up here, you'll get to an opening. You put the end of your tape in that opening, bend your tape measure around, and go to 19 1/4. 19 1/4 is at the base of that line. And so essentially what I had already done is I had already marked that line. You want to get that pretty level so that whenever you're installing this piece, you have something that's nice and level in the end. Now to talk about this rear hinge bracket, this is a piece, you will have a driver and passenger, and so you kind of want to hold that up, making sure that this portion is to the exterior of the unit. When you receive this piece, what you'll notice is that you don't have blue tape on here, you have red tape. This is a 3M VHB tape underneath, and once you stick it to something, it holds really well. It's very durable. And so with this being a demo unit, I didn't want to have to go through all the time that it takes to remove this part with the VHB, so we just simply put painter's tape on there. We will now line up in between the welds. There's welds on either side of this arm. We're going to line up at the base of that line to the best of our ability. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it pretty close. And you're going to go ahead and stick that plate on the arm. And you'll press low and high and make sure that you get a really nice bond between that VHB and the arm. All right guys, we're going to install this front cover plate. This is a pretty simplistic install. You are going to use a 14 millimeter, and basically we're going to reach right in here. We're going to undo that. We're going to remove the nut, the bolt, lock washer, and washer. Once you get that loose, you can do it by hand. We're going to take that off, and now we're going to put the washer and everything in front of this plate. You will notice that there is a little extension out here that needs to be going to the outside of the unit. And then now we will also put this back in like that. And get our hole lined up and started. And then it is easy to kind of hold this in place and in its original position. All right, then we'll go ahead and tighten that down. All right, now we're going to move to the front rubber piece. All right guys, in preparation, let's identify some parts and how we're going to utilize them. This is one of the lower coupling plates, and it's going to sit oriented just like this. Mainly you'll notice these two PIM studs here at the back towards the rear. We're going to go ahead and actually put this on the rubber before we install. It just makes things a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify these two holes back here. I'm going to line them up with those PIM studs. And we're simply going to feed the PIM studs through those holes, and then we're going to go ahead and put some nuts on those so that they don't try to back out. Not worried about tightening those up just yet. We're just going to get those on here. Now it's time to install the rubber. What I like to do is kind of bring this to the inside with the rear plate showing. I'm also going to go ahead and get those studs in, although we won't put nuts on them. But I do like to kind of carry it in this way and then kind of fold it over, if you will. And it can be a little awkward at first, but you're just really trying to fit that down around not only the hydraulic cylinder, but also the associated hydraulic line as well. Okay, so we've got started there. Now I'm going to go ahead and install this piece here. And you'll notice that the PIM studs are coming out at you at the camera, and then you have a flat portion. That flat portion is going to go between the hydraulic cylinder and the hydraulic line. And so I'm going to reach up underneath. We're going to do our best to fit that through there. There we go. All right. And now I'm going to hold that plate and start feeding the PIM studs through the rubber. So I've got two there at the front. That's going to close that seam that's designed in so that you can easily install. And then now from the back, I'm kind of holding the bottom of that plate and pushing the rubber around it. All right, looks like we've got all of our PIM studs through the rubber. So now what we're going to do is we're going to install these pieces. You'll notice that there is a clamp bracket, if you will. I have one piece that is a complete radius, and that's going to go over on this side here. And then I have another piece that has two flats. And one of those flats should be running parallel with the interior of the machine. The other one's going to go right between the cylinder and that hydraulic line. So let's feed that through. Okay. And these can be a little bit challenging to get on if you take your time. Don't force anything. But as you have success getting these PIM studs through, go ahead and put a nut on them. That's going to help hold it in place. Don't have to tighten them down. Now we're going to install, and again, we're not going to tighten, but we're going to install some 1/4 by 3/4 hardware with a serrated flange nut on the rear. With those installed, it's now time to put on our hose clamp. The hose clamp's going to do two things. During install, it's going to help us hold this to the correct position. And the correct position of this plate right here, the top of that plate to the top of this larger portion of the cylinder is 5.5 inches. And so this, once we install, is going to help us to hold that right where we want it. And to get started, I'm going to go ahead and get this in the proper grooves, spin it a little bit. Then I'm going to place it down underneath the lip of that front bracket. Let's go ahead and get that kind of situated. Hold that in place as I tighten it. Make sure there is a bracket here that's going to hold the hose clamp. There's also one 180 degrees out. And so you want to make sure that both of those are underneath that hose clamp bracket. We're going to get this somewhat tight, but not real tight, enough to where we can still move it up and down the cylinder. And now what we're going to do is just simply measure from the top. We are spot on 5.5 inches. It doesn't always work that way, guys, I promise you. The rear needs to go up just a bit. But I'm going to go ahead and lock this clamp down so that it's going to hold it in position for me as we install. Let's take one more check. Yep, 5.5 and 5.5. Nice. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take some time, I'm going to tighten down everything that we've installed, and then we'll move to the rear. All right guys, we're going to install this rear cover panel, and it's the largest piece that you'll install. You will notice that on the interior you have the large flange side. On the exterior of the unit you're going to have this bubble trim. That bubble trim is going to ride right next to this arm, and so we're going to go ahead and use a series of tabs and retainers, and so there's 3 of them that you can put on first. One of them you have to wait till the end, but I'm going to go ahead and show you that right now. So you're going to use a 1/4x1. You're going to go through that rear hole on the interior side. You're going to put a white spacer. You're going to put your retainer, and then you're going to put your nut. Don't tighten it down all the way, as we want to get it installed first to do so. Next, we're going to use also a 1/4x1 flange bolt. We're going to do the white spacer, then we're going to do the retainer with a 1/4 inch serrated flange nut. Okay. Back here at the rear, there's a hole at the rear and there's a hole at the front. On the rear, you're going to take a retainer, take the only regular nuts that you'll have in the bag. You're going to go ahead and put this stud in there, place it in that rear hole, and put on your 1/4 inch serrated flange nut. We're going to leave that open hole open, and I'll show you why here in just a second. As we feed this down in here, we're going to kind of pitch the front of this down, and there is a piece of rubber, and let me pull this out real quick. There is a piece of rubber right back here that we need to feed into this gap right in here. Okay, so as we do that, we're going to try to do this in one hit and go. All right, perfect. Now we're going to pull it forward. We're going to get it down as low as we can. We're going to check we are sitting on our spacers, and then now we're going to, with it down, we're going to kind of pull it back while we're put pressure down, pull it back, and then we're going to install this front retainer. It is the same setup that we just installed here with the 1/4 inch serrated flange nut. Now we're going to tighten all of that down, make sure we're nice and secure, and then we're going to install this rear rubber piece. All right guys, we have the rear rubber piece that we are going to install. Pretty simplistic. We have 3 holes. We have 3 pin studs sticking up. We're going to feed this down onto those pin studs. We're going to utilize 1/4 inch serrated flange nuts. And then I'll tighten this thing down real quick. All right, let's move to the front for the last piece. All right guys, last step that we're going to do is we're going to install this 3/16 bracket. You'll notice that it has 2 flanges on it. It has some nuts that are welded on it and some 3/8 bolts that are going to be used like set screws. I usually like to put the 3/8 bolt right there at the edge so I don't have a long way to go once I get started. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this rubber piece back, and I'm going to expose what we call the ridge. And so there's a welded seam here, and then there's a little ridge, and we're going to go right just over that weld, and we're going to press that down in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and install this lower 3/16 bracket. I'm going to get it in place, and then I'm going to hand tighten for a little bit while I'm keeping good pressure on it, pressing downward. And then I'm going to use a 9/16 wrench on this 3/8 bolt, and I'm going to do that interior side quite a bit while I'm pressing down on that part. Now I'll come to this other side, to just get one good turn. Again, lots of pressure going downward while you're turning that that last quarter turn. And you should be in really good shape. That bracket's not going anywhere. It's going to hammer that that rubber down, and that completes the install. Let's wrap it up for the day. All right, guys, we have completed the install video. I will say that if you're unfamiliar with this product, it should take you about 30 minutes per side to install. Once you become familiar, it should be about 20 minutes per side. And I hope that this video helps expedite that process for you. And if you guys have any questions at all about the product or the install, you can reference other videos that we have online, or just simply call us. We'll pick up the phone. Let's take a look at this thing in action.